ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, Jules and Jez here, and as part of the East Coast deal with the destruction caused by ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, politicians have been up and down the coast pitching in.
So what do we actually want from a leader at a time of national crisis?
You can catch our chat on Not Stupid. Find us on the ABC Listen app.
It's a $20 billion industry charged with the care of almost 1.5 million Australian children. But is the childcare sector being run by the wrong people? Can parents trust when they drop their kids off, they'll be safe? Today, Adele Ferguson on her Four Corners investigation into how profits are often put ahead of care and how some centres are not what they seem. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Adele, you spent 6 months investigating childcare in Australia, and really what you found in terms of quality of care, it's quite frankly shocking, isn't it?
It is. It really shocked me just how bad it was. You know, childcare educators that have fraudulent qualifications, there's a workforce in crisis, underpayment of workers, and then the enforcement, the whole regulatory system is really substandard.
And it's not like every childcare centre is a dangerous place. But some of the stuff that you found, the serious incidents that are occurring, there's a lot.
There are. So in terms of serious incidents which are reported, so that's things like children going to hospital due to injuries and trauma, kids going missing or can't be found, might have escaped through a fence. Those sort of things are serious incidents. There were 26,000 cases reported in 2024. That's a 27% jump in 3 years. So if you boil that down into per day, that's every day at least 7 children are going missing or are locked out of centres.
Oh my gosh, this will worry so many parents, right, Adele, because there are so many kids in childcare in Australia.
That's right. There's almost 1.5 million kids in childcare. And I'm telling you about the serious incidents that have been reported. There are so many that are not reported for various reasons. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I worked with Professor Gabrielle Marr, who has been looking at the childcare sector for decades, along with aged care, disabilities, anything that's the social system.
So every year, about 300 or 400 new childcare centres open, and of them, about 95% or so are for-profit centres. We can see that all the growth...
Gabrielle has been at the forefront, and she was very concerned about the trends in childcare.
And I think people would be very surprised to see how many real estate brokers, property developers and investment bankers are looking to make big money in the childcare sector.
This is big, big business, isn't it?
It's huge business. It's at least $20 billion a year in revenue comes from childcare, and it's underpinned by billions of dollars in government subsidies. So the more the government has been subsidising the system, which we want, the side effect has been the private sector has been coming in with its ears pinned back. So what you've got now is almost 3/4 of the childcare system in long day care is owned by the for-profit sector.
All right, so some of the stories you're going to tell us are pretty hard to hear, but you've spoken to former workers in the industries, parents, providers. What are the cases that have shocked you the most along the way?
Yeah, there were quite a few. Some of the ones that really stood out was Jumpstart was horrifying what went on there. It's in New South Wales. They had 5 centres, but in one particular centre, there was an educator who was doing the most horrific things to kids. And in a statement of facts, which they pleaded to, it said that for the educator's amusement, water was splashed on one of the kids as he's tied to a high chair and can't get out.
Oh my gosh, and you spoke to Jane, a mother of one of these children.
Yes, he was one of the children that was strapped into a high chair for 3 to 6 hours a day. And what was so upsetting about this story, Jane would get pictures regularly of her child sitting, playing, eating, all those things. And she'd think he was really happy, but he couldn't tell her how he was really feeling. He'd be crying on the way to childcare.
So my son was 3 when he started. He was developmentally the age of maybe an 18-month-old, and he was nonverbal.
And she just thought maybe it was just a developmental thing, when in reality there was all these horrible things going on. The case went through the courts and they pleaded guilty.
I would say it's a house of horrors and the people in it are the devil as far as I'm concerned. They did not protect my son. They picked a vulnerable child who could not talk, and they broke a trust that I will never get back, and that has impacted our family beyond words.
And you've also spoken not only to the parents of some of these children, but also a lot of former workers in the industry, including some who've been associated with one of the biggest providers in the country, Affinity Education.
Yes, so Affinity Education is the 3rd largest in the country. It's got more than 250 centres around the country, and it's 20,000 kids are enrolled in their childcare centres. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the worst that we found. It had a number of breaches, it had a number of incidents. And I spoke to a number of workers and centre managers at Affinity. One of them was Latia Loveday.
As a centre manager, I would leave my house in the morning with a pit in my stomach, and I'd take an extra change of clothes with me.
And she was saying that it was so horrible. When she would go to work, she would have to take a change of clothes because she'd vomit on herself at the thought of what she'd have to go through that day.
9 times out of 10 in my hour drive to work, I'd throw up on myself. I'd get to work, I'd clean myself up, literally listen to pump-up music the whole drive in so I could get ready to lead my team the right way. But it was killing me inside.
So would you say with Affinity, the kids weren't put at the centre of things?
Absolutely not. No.
What was at the centre of it?
Profit, at all times.
Oh my gosh. You also spoke to Joanna Hugo. She also worked at Affinity.
She did. She said she witnessed one educator who told about 20 kids to spit at one kid and then hit him, and then she held him down, which I found really disturbing.
It's horrible.
So Joanna Hugo gave evidence to the regulator. We have a recording of that.
She told the children, everyone hit Alex, and then everyone spit.
And 3 weeks after she gave evidence to the regulator, Affinity terminated her employment.
So, Adele, that's happening at one of the biggest childcare providers in the country. What did Affinity have to say about these allegations?
One of the things with Affinity is in New South Wales, they admitted to 35 breach notices over 2 years, including for injuries and inappropriate discipline. They had workers with 31 fake certificates. And in Queensland, there were 13 emergency action notices. And over 4 years, they had 3 show cause notices, which are really serious things. The regulator doesn't send out a show cause notice unless there's something really serious going on. So Affinity said in a statement that it cares for more than 20,000 children, and they told us that safety is a priority. They said we're committed to upholding the highest standards in all respects of our operations, and that they were working with the regulator to improve systems and processes at one centre in particular, Spring Farm, which is in New South Wales. In the case of Joanna Hugo, the company said it received a breach notice from the department for her conduct, and that's why it let her go.
So, Adele, let's delve into why things are getting worse and why there are more reports of abuse, injury, or just a lack of professional care. When profit comes first, many things fall away, right?
Yes, because the biggest cost in running a centre is the wages bill. So it's a really easy one to target. And that's what we found, that workers were suffering from burnout, low pay and exploitation. So they're leaving the sector in droves. There's now an estimated 21,000 labour shortage in childcare centres, so it's becoming a bit of a crisis. So we spoke to one worker called Ashley Sy, who's worked in 25 centres over her 7 years.
I've sort of seen the ugly side of it. People putting profits before children.
She's seen staff who are completely unqualified, but they're there just to plug a hole.
I've worked with people who didn't know the basics. I've worked with somebody who didn't know how to properly put a nappy on.
So we have this huge, Adele, shortage in childcare workers, but the government was trying to address that, right, by lifting wages. Has that not helped?
It's a 15% wage subsidy among the lowest paid workers in the country. It's not enough. It's too little too late. For instance, Latia Loveday says the pay is disgusting.
We are glorified babysitters. We are not treated as professionals. We are not treated as people who know what they're doing. We are a means to make an end, unfortunately.
And you've also found that people are being brought in on visas to actually work in childcare, but there's questions over the legitimacy of their applications.
Yes, in some cases, that's right. We spoke to an immigration agent, Mark Glasbrook, who's been in the industry for 27 years, and he estimates 1 in 3 international applicants are probably not genuine, in the sense that they really want it as a pathway to permanent residency.
Sometimes students don't go to college at all, but they still get the outcome. They're now working in sectors like childcare, looking after Australians' children. That's alarming.
So from a childcare industry point of view, what sort of impact are we talking?
There may be people that are currently in Australia working in childcare who have a qualification who are not up to industry standards.
Oh my gosh. All right. Adele, you're painting a very troubling picture, but not all centres are bad, right? And there is a quality rating system. Can parents rely on that?
So you're absolutely right. There are some very good centres. There are some good centres in the for-profit and the non-profit. Mm-hmm. But the problem is the quality is deteriorating. And we have this national framework of quality standards, and they simply can't be relied on. And the reason is simple. Each state looks after them and there isn't enough resources. So the Productivity Commission put out a report in September last year into childcare, and it did look at the quality standards, and it was saying on average they are reviewed every 4 years, which is just not good enough. In some cases, in some states, it's up to 9 years.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
All right, so Adele, what are parents meant to make of all of this? What should they be looking for, or what can they be doing to make sure their child is protected and cared for as they go about their working day? This is such a big worry for them, I would have thought.
It is a big worry, and that's why the government really needs to step in and look at this sector, because these are vulnerable people that really need to be properly looked after. And what educators I've spoken to say, instead of telling them that you're going to pick your child up at 4 o'clock, pop in unannounced at 2 o'clock, pop in at lunchtime when they're not expecting you, because it can often be smoke and mirrors. You can get these photos that look great when in actual fact other things are going on. The problem is, because it's so lucrative to run a childcare centre, some of them, when they look at a child, they see a dollar sign, and that's really not right.
Adele Ferguson is an investigative reporter. You can catch her Four Corners report tonight on ABC TV at 8:30 or on iview. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Adair Shepherd. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.